You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Force 13 Live, we're covering Cyclone Mocha, which is a Category 2 now on the Saffir-Simpson scale, a storm that has strengthened quite markedly since last night when we did an update just over 24 hours ago. It was at 60 miles per hour going on 70, and here it is right now at 110 miles per hour sustained winds. That's about 170, 175 kilometers per hour. And an estimated central pressure of 959 millibars. This is obviously bad news, and it's heading towards the coast of Myanmar near the border with Bangladesh, where already a lot of displaced people currently reside. And so the humanitarian cost of this cyclone potentially could be enormous, and we are very concerned about that. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio, and I'm joined by my team at the moment. A small team, but a very, let's say, an experienced one. We've got veteran cyclone trackers, Alex, who's over there in the Netherlands, and Soham, who joins us from India. Soham's closest. Let's talk to you first. Your thoughts on the cyclone as we look at it today?
Well, to make things in the short span, Mocha has continued to intensify over the last 24 hours at a steady rate. While yesterday, when we were discussing it on stream, the system was starting to get to rotate convection around itself, around its center. Today, if you notice carefully, because of moderate easterly shear, I believe it's around 20 knots, according to model soundings. 20 knots of easterly shear. The storm has continued to slowly intensify and steadily gain intensity.
Yep.
Latest JTWC and latest ATCF and IMD estimates, I believe as of right now, I think 75 knots as of latest IMD update, and the Joint Typhoon Warning Center has 90 knots as of the latest 12 p.m. UTC live update.
These are the views from our automated stream, which when we're not doing commentary, this is live on the Force 13 channel and is running in tandem with us right now. And you can see more infrared imagery on how this storm has progressed throughout the course of today. The eye's starting to become a little bit more apparent and really banding around that eye wall. Large amounts of convection. So really a lot of energy in this storm as we look at those late visible frames into the nighttime hours now, and it really looked a bit of a beast at sunset, didn't it?
Indeed. Please continue.
Oh, I was just gonna mention Alex, who's here with us as I did earlier, and Ethan's also joined us as well. Well, let's talk to Alex. I imagine you've been watching this storm from its early stages, so what's your take on Mocha?
Well, at the moment it's really taking advantage of what's called a jet stream interaction. That the jet stream is a vast area of very high winds high up in the atmosphere that separates polar air from tropical air. And what this does for the tropical cyclone is it provides extra energy release possibilities, as a tropical cyclone produces a lot of energy as its convection gets started and going, and that energy needs to go somewhere for the tropical cyclone to deepen. So what this does, this jet interaction, is provide an even additional amount of energy release besides just regular outflow. And this results in the storm being able to deepen even more, and it somewhat lessens effects of vertical wind shear if it's aligned properly, like right now.
Now, we were talking about the shear forecast off the air before we came on here, Soham, and you said earlier that it's going to still rise, but the forecast has tapered off just a little bit on that.
Yeah, see, in earlier forecasts compared to yesterday and comparing the storm's motion to today, over the last 24 hours, the storm has moved slightly slower than what the GFS had forecast. So so when the GFS forecasted that the collision with the upper level anticyclone that's over Indochina Peninsula and Thailand has it would cause it to sorry, let me repeat. It would cause shear to rise rather quickly. Now, because the storm has moved slower, the flow the shear vector that is affecting it has not risen as fast as it was forecast. Still around 20 knots as compared to what GFS wanted in its previous runs. Now, it's still going to run into higher shear of around 25 knots plus, based on what I can find on model soundings. But the total time it's going to spend in that shear has also decreased. It's uh, it's reduced to only around a day of higher shear now, as opposed to max 2 days
Gee.
as shown in GFS in previous runs.
Here's some pictures from Cox's Bazaar right now of the storm signals being lifted there. That's one such view. Here's another from Twitter right now. This is the refugee camp over there at Cox's Bazaar. I'm still not clear as to where all of these displaced people actually are in relation to where the storm's going to be impacting. I heard that we've got like 1 million people. That's a bit loud. 1 million people involved in parts of northwestern Bangladesh. So that's what I heard earlier, and across Myanmar completely it's 1.8 million. And that's something that we're very concerned about as we get in towards this storm impacting these areas in the next 48 hours now. And it could, the coastline there could be absolutely slammed with winds in excess of 120 miles per hour or more, a storm surge, which is probably going to be way higher than 10 feet now, 3 or 4 meters, and excessive rainfall, which could reach around 200, possibly more, 300 millimeters in some locations. Ethan, you're with us as well. Hello there, joining us this morning from Indianapolis. Your thoughts on Cyclone Mocha as you see it here?
I'm just pulling up imagery on it. I'll just be just a few minutes.
Okay. Well, Ethan's preparing himself there. Yeah, you've been posting stuff in the chat right now. Shall I share that?
I believe it's a model sounding from the ECMWF, the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecast. The other major model that we use forecasting.
Yes.
And it shows, and it actually shows low, and because the ECMWF has been persistently more west than the GFS, which is constantly correcting and by moving more westward, the ECMWF overall gives it a lower amount of time in higher shear. Also around similar, 1 day max to max in 30 knots of shear or so. And the GFS is trending towards this solution.
Now, what was the basis on our current wind and pressure estimate right now? We're giving it 110 miles per hour and a pressure of 959 millibars. Do you want to... I don't know if you've got a discussion to reveal about that or your prognosis.
We do. The first things first, because of the recent because of the storm wrapping convection around, the raw the raw data T or Dirac imagery has dropped, what do we say, risen up sharply. At some points it was raw of 6.0, and the official agencies, the Satellite Analysis Branch and the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, both GTWC and both fixed T5.5 in their 12 p.m. UTC fixes, which is a raw value of 102 knots or category 3.
Wow.
Now, the reason why we haven't gone 100 knots just yet was because the storm's inner structure is still rather vulnerable, and microwave imagery, the eastern side was still rather open and weak, and the northeast quadrant will continue to be impacted by shear, as is already apparent on imagery.
Our forecast right now
That
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention.
sorry, I need to finish.
Okay.
Continuing with that, and the pressure, and as for the pressure estimate, the 959 millibars comes from the official wind pressure relationship that was published by NOAA and the Bureau of Meteorology. So when you convert that, you get 959 millibars from 95 knots. It's our pressure estimate for this.
Now, our forecast takes it to 140 miles per hour before landfall. Do you agree with that?
I personally expect the storm to actually hold for like another 12 to 24 hours, like either hold in intensity or gradually increase in forecast before suddenly before starting a round of quicker intensification. So yeah, I don't think 120 knots is out of the question here, or 140 miles per hour. It's out of the question.
Yeah. Alex, what do you think about that forecast?
Yeah, I'm at the moment not really taking any sides with forecast, as the storm really has an environment that's still open for a lot of change in the short term. Like, if the storm would suddenly succumb on the northeastern quadrant to like the shear suddenly, then it would have major implications for the future of the track. But then again, if the storm manages to successfully wrap this burst around and fend off the shear for a while, then yeah, I'm leaning on the same side as Stoa. So
All right.
there's still a lot open to happen.
We are taking
Yeah,
questions. I'm
considering
sorry.
I'm actually keeping a constant. I think it almost wrapped around in latest frames. I'm keeping an eye to see if it continues to do so.
Interesting.
It just touched, I think. No, it's not touched yet. It was very close to touching the downshear side.
Very interesting. We'll be taking questions throughout the stream as well. Send your questions in. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and please direct people to watch our stream if they're in the area. It's quite important. The storm is very much on its way, and we'll take some of those questions shortly after we give a little time for them to rack up. Ethan, are you ready for us now?
Yeah, I've got the microwave pass on my screen, Nathan.
Okay, let's take a look at this.
That's a pretty decent eye wall, at least on the western and southern sides. Northeast side's a little bit weak, a little bit too thin, if you ask me. But that western and southern side of the eye, that is a particularly strong storm on those sides, of course.
I can help supplement Ethan's explanation here.
Sure.
As Ethan said, there's a good reason why the western and southern side is stronger, and that's because that's the side that is with the shear vector, meaning it's not conflicting with the area where the vertical wind shear is originating from. We call that in colloquial terms downshear. So the downshear side of the convection is well developed. Now, if you try to circle the convection around, notice that the eastern side is against the shear vector. The shear is coming from the east, and the storm east. That's a direct conflict. Call this side. When a storm is able to rotate convection against this shear vector or rotate up shear, is a sign that the storm has developed well enough in the low levels to counteract the effects of shear and intensify regardless. Why we will see in meteorological circles the term upshear convection being used sparingly. It's not something to be used lightly.
I just
The
want to
storm
point
can
out
grab
the.
convection upshear. That's
I just want to point out the latest Joint Typhoon Warning Center warning cone is out, Nathan.
All right.
And they got it. They got it kind of right last night. I know that they forecasted 120 knots in a previous warning cycle. They're now down to 110 knots again.
Interesting.
I think it's going to be a little bit more than that.
That's
I'm
intriguing.
not sure
and,
what.
And a slight curve towards a more northerly direction towards the end there. It's not like, you know what I mean, that it's going to be curving round to a landfall. It's already doing a lot of that curve, and it's going to curve back just a little bit.
I do notice that, like, you can see here that it's taken that northeastward turn, but if you follow this track, it sort of curves back up towards the north a little bit. You can see it kind of doing that a little bit on the cone, maybe wobbling a little bit.
Very much like the ECMWF solution, which shows it curving a bit northwest thanks to the jet stream lifting it up as it goes north.
Now, I know, Ethan, you've got the models racked up in the background as well. We'll take a look in a moment, if you don't mind. But first, let's introduce a couple of other people with us right now. We've got Declan. Hello there. Somewhere in the background. And we've also got Cesar, who produced our update earlier today. So let's talk to Cesar and your thoughts when you were making the update, and since then, what's your take on the storm now?
Well, good morning from here, Nathan, and everyone.
Morning.
Yeah, it's quite impressive how Mocha has been progressing on the last hours. When I did the update, quite like in the midnight, that's like about 9 hours ago. It was really impressive how the eye was really developing and how well organized, and the structure itself became really well, not compact, but getting all together. Like on the first stages of becoming a really significant cyclone, and now that is almost a major cyclone, or a borderline category 2. It's quite impressive. I mean, looking at the satellite animation and the infrared animation, it's showing how really good it's progressing. Unfortunately for everyone in the path of this system, and man, oh man, it's going to be rough for the people. Let's see what's
I'm just pulling up the satellite. Oh my gosh! Wow, that's quite the improvement of what I saw 2 hours ago, Nathan.
Where have you been?
Well, whenever I saw it 2 hours ago, the northern side was completely falling or struggling to maintain itself, and now it looks like that it's got 3/4 of an eye wall in satellite imagery.
Okay, let's see this.
Yeah, I've got a loop up courtesy of Levi Cowan's website.
And that's Himawari
and you can see
9,
here,
which is in 10-minute intervals.
Yeah, so right here was where we were producing our 12Z estimates. And you can see the northern side is pretty much not even there on the eye. I mean, obviously it's got this band to the north, but the northern side of the eye wall is just not there. And then if you go forward to now, look at that. That's not good news. That is not what we wanted to see.
Well, that's a clear sign of rapid intensification.
That's what we meant that's what I meant when I said upshear convection.
I'd say if this western gap here is able to close it off, and if this eye temperature is able to sustain itself until it closes off, and once you get that appearance that holds for a few hours, I think we have a category 3 on our hands.
And if I've been following what you're saying correctly, so it's going to be easier for the storm to do this when it's on that western side?
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah.
It should be able to. But then again, it also has to continue to propagate that way, because there's the what do you say? Because the convection has to continue moving against the shear vector, and once it finally reaches the downshear side, it will be able to fully wrap.
Yeah, you can already see this
It hasn't
happening
fully reached the
actually
downshear
in.
side yet.
You can already see it
Yeah, it
happening in the
hasn't
latest
reached it
streams.
fully yet.
Really?
Yeah, because if you look at this, Nathan, this convective burst that we're seeing on the northern side is already wrapping around to the western side, because if I just go to frame by frame, you can just see it already starting to reach down towards the south.
I
Already.
guess.
It's a very slow process. Bearing in mind that this imagery is the latest image I have is 20 minutes out of date, so who knows what it's done since then. But it does appear that maybe the actual center of the storm is more so around here, so it might be a little bit of an oval-sized eye, and still most of it might be cloud covered still.
Not forgetting this is Himawari 9, it's near the edge of that band. Do we know what the eye temperature is? So I know you quoted some numbers before we went on the air. Himawari 9's probably
Just
not
give
the
me
best
2
for that.
minutes. Yeah,
Okay,
just give me 2 minutes. I'll just bring it up.
sure.
Yeah, I'm also grabbing a satellite estimated eye temperature based on another website that I use, and it's got a eye temperature of -30. So it's getting there. It's not the greatest, but
What satellite did
certainly
you use? May I ask?
CompSat, I think is what it is.
ComSat still has some zenith angle, but I have
Yeah.
InSat, and that's directly over the system.
Yeah.
Let me probe the eye temperature from there.
So interesting stuff there, and Alex, you're also showing us some images too.
Yeah. It's the same satellite CERN uses, but via the UMETSAT website. Here we can go back somewhat, and you can really see how it bursts. Oh, wrong button.
From InSat 3DR, the eye temperature is -17 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
And I must say, the more vertically a satellite is directly over a storm, more accurate its eye temperature is.
Yeah.
Because
Of course.
when you view the storm from an angle, the strongest, the warmest part of the eye can often get hidden by the eye wall, which and so you may not be able to directly see into the main eye, and then that's why having a satellite that's directly over the storm is so important. So by this metric, the eye temperature is clearly in the upper -10s.
There's some more recent.
Oh, some more images there from Alex. That was an interesting looking view.
This one?
Yeah. What's that line?
Yeah, that's probably has to do with something on the satellite disk itself or something with the instrument, as it's only appeared like a few hours ago. So,
So just to reassure everyone, it's
what
not
is happening here, but you can see it's only in this part really that it's happening. So it lines up at the center of the mirror.
It's not a landfall, and it's not the track of the storm. No, that's just a little artifact there on that image.
Oh, we have a new micro image, but it's a partial pass.
Oh, okay. This is interesting. Where can we see that?
Posting it right now.
Let me grab another layer.
It's from GMI.
All right, here's a partial microwave pass there, and you can see the storm once again, looking decent.
Now, before we can start drawing any conclusions from this, I need to point out that because of the nature of these polar passes, you might have noticed that at the very edge you can see it stretching a bit. at the very edge. That's a problem with the that's a known problem, and you should and you should generally ignore the most edge part of the pass.
Okay. So that is to
Otherwise, it
say,
shows that the storm is otherwise it shows the storm is definitely wrapping convection against the shear vector.
yeah, it certainly looks that way. And that is very recent as well, that one. That pass. Okay, let's take some questions. A lot of people have been waiting a while, I think. So let's see what we've got. Trogle Storm Ultiniberon says, how big is Mocha's wind radius right now? Do we know?
We can check it out. Quite few seconds and see how is the wind field of the system.
I'm sure it's a lot bigger. We'll come back to you there. Storm 962 says the outflow for Mocha is constantly wiping off the shear. Is that literally what happens, or what?
It's a little more complicated than that. Basically,
Yeah.
the shear vector is called deep layer shear. In other words, it's in the middle levels. Now, this shear is mostly at, near the upper levels, and the upper level meaning higher up in the atmosphere, and that is generally where you find the outflow of the storm. So the shear is at the outflow layer, and historically, storms have an easier time dealing with shear that is more upper level than on the lower levels, where the base foundation of the storm is. Which is that's one of the explanations why Mocha has dealt with the shear better than expected. The shear has been more potent on the upper levels rather than on the more harmful lower levels.
All right, Cesar, you get that info?
So you can.
Well, based on the last advisory of Joint Typhoons Warning Center, the tropical storm force winds are extending from 135 to 170 nautical miles, both southern quadrants. The northern quadrants are literally the half of the wind field from the south quadrant. So
I'm back with you, Nathan. We've got a new
590.
microwave pass.
Is that the same one that Soam showed us? Yeah, but at least we can... I've got it. I can show it on a bigger screen now, so we can take just another look at that one. There it is once again. What's your thoughts on that, Ethan?
It's interesting. I wish I got the eastern side of the eye wall. I don't, unfortunately. But certainly intensifying, and I'd be a bit reluctant to keep the Category 2 estimate personally for top of the hour. I think this is probably a Cat 3 now.
Don't rush. I don't know.
That's why I'm sort of playing it with caution, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Let's get some more questions there as well. SRB12 says, I have no idea why there's an invest in the South Pacific. Well, I marked this. Yes, Ethan, did you not know? I marked this system near French Polynesia because, in fact, multiple models have it now. Might not be tropical, might be subtropical, but there is a chance of a system forming near French Polynesia very soon, within the next 2 to 3 days. And it could be nameable. It shouldn't really affect the areas.
Actually, Nathan, I don't know if it's going to be named. I don't know if it's going to be named because the Fiji Meteorological Service historically has been pretty reluctant to name storms in the far east of the basin.
Well,
and it's also pretty far south as well.
Well, I'll tell you something. I said nameable, which means it ought to be named. Whether it actually gets named or not, that's another matter, I guess.
From what I've seen on models, it's only GFS really wanting to make it tropical, but ECMWF doesn't really form it. It really will depend on its interaction with the ridge to its south.
We'll watch that closely. Another comment, will this...
system outside of Mocha, most interesting system outside of Mocha is that invest in the South Indian Ocean.
Yep.
I believe ATCF just now christened it as 92S.
Yep. We'll show models on that fairly soon. Supriya says, will Mocha peak as a Category 5? We've been sidestepping that question a little bit today. Cesar confidently saying no.
I've sidestepped that question. I will have to sidestep that question as well, because I've firsthand seen just how powerful jet interaction storms can get compared to model forecasts and all other logic. On the other hand, it still has the shear forecast is not a joke. It is significant. It has significant. It will fight significant shear all the way to landfall, even during the jet interaction.
And Alex, your screen there showing both of those systems actually right now. Just wanted to get that out just to show people both of those systems, almost a mirror image, just that one's a lot stronger than the other.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see how they have the same origin as well, from a singular westerly wind burst that recently occurred. And what the westerly wind burst does in an environment favorable for DC formation is that it somewhat mitigates the effects of the lack of Coriolis force, and that's the force that makes cyclones get their spin in the clockwise or counterclockwise directions. And yeah, that's alongside all the moisture and the lows that develop due to it. Yeah, that can lead to some amazing images when conditions are right.
In fact, yeah, it's also worth noting that models aren't exactly keeping the system weak. Like GFS, I think, went into the 950s, and ECMWF went into the 970s.
Yeah, ECMWF major uptrend from them today on that one.
I haven't seen such a dual westerly wind burst strength in ages.
There we go.
I mean, it's very rare to get two storms in the Indian Ocean from a westerly wind burst event.
Yeah.
I know we got one in 2020, the 2021 westerly wind burst, and in 2022 as well. We also got Asani and Karim. I think those were the two formed.
All right, Ethan, you wanted to say something earlier?
Yeah, well, I was just comment on that Category 5 peak. Personally, I would say that it is not out of the question, although the chances of it actually happening at this point are very low, but I would not rule it out.
And we got that info regarding the radius of winds, just for those who wanted specific numbers for the gale force winds extending out 85 nautical miles in the northeastern quadrant, 170 southeast, 135 southwest, and 90 northwest. So maximum distance there being 170 in the southeast. That's approximately about 300 to 320 kilometers.
And that seems about right. Do you want me to go over the models now, Nathan?
All right, we won't wait any longer, will it? Let's take a look at the models. Ethan, take it away.
Right, so we'll go straight into the HWRF model run. I have to warn you that this is not an exact forecast that we're going to be showing here. This is just a model representation. Don't take this with absolute certainty. So this is what the HWRF model. This is what the HWRF model is showing right now for the storm. It models it decently well, I guess you could say. Has it with winds of 90 miles per hour, 967 millibars right now. It's a little bit low on that. And here's what it does. Rapidly intensifies the storm in the next 24 hours up to probably a Category 4 and a strong one at that. Boy. And it continues to push off towards the coast of India here in Myanmar and Bangladesh.
Yes, Ethan.
My apologies there. And gets pretty strong here. 920 millibars into land here. That's quite strong.
Well, a little bit of good news is it's not quite as strong as the previous runs, but still very strong.
If I were to add another bit of good news, it tries to intensify the storm through to unrealistically high shear.
Interesting.
I've been meaning to point this out, but the HWRF has been noted by some of the more knowledgeable folk to not be that well coupled in the Bay of Bengal under very high sea surface temperatures. It tends to keep the storm vertically stacked or basically in a state of near nil shear for way too long as compared to reality.
Fair enough.
So I wouldn't bank too much on the HWRF personally.
GFS then?
Yep, here's the GFS. We'll go to where it is right now. It's hard to say exactly what it is, but it's probably hopelessly behind on the winds. I
It
don't really pay
is.
attention to the winds. It's more so the pressure that you want to pay attention to. It is a little bit high on the pressure as well. It gets down to 939, looks like, at the lowest. That's probably a Category 4 on the GFS. And plows into land there at a very strong intensity, probably still a Category 4 intensity. So that's that solution.
And you said it
The-
there, it initializes the storm 13 millibars too high, so
Yeah.
who knows?
You may want to look at the ECMWF next, and
Here
that
it is.
I believe I
That's-
looked ahead.
Even the Euro has it 970 really, 969.9. So that's probably the weakest of the initializations. Although this is
And it
the
still goes down to
60 run.
936 last I checked.
Really?
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, 935 actually, 932,
935.
926.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
that's
why
I
ECMWF
say
is
strong Category
going
4 there.
Quite crazy. I'm looking at the site right now with blooms, and let's say quite a lot of members go very low.
Sheesh.
Yeah,
So that's another model in the low 930s now. Let's see. Oh, that's nice. I'm trying to get to the Canadian model here. This is going to be a bit high on the pressure, but still, that's a mid 950s for peak from the Canadian model, which is still pretty strong for it.
We really want
What
to
does
see
the
the
icon
icon
show?
because that was the one that was taking it much further south and very strong. It still is to an extent there.
It's gone a little bit further towards the north, but
Yeah.
high 920s on the pressure. So seems like we have general consensus for the low 930s on the pressure at peak.
Well, that's concerning.
That's
But one thing that I have noticed compared to the model runs that we were seeing, say, 12 hours ago, Nathan, on the previous live stream, a lot of models had it peaking farther offshore. They're getting a little bit closer towards the shoreline now with the peak intensity of this storm.
It is big question right now. Is it possible that all the models are underestimating this wind shear?
Yeah, they absolutely could
the
be.
GFS was overestimating the wind shear.
Is it?
I
yeah.
wanted to point. I was pointing it out. I was pointing this out earlier in the stream as well. GFS was actually overestimating the wind shear in the previous stream yesterday. Now that the storm has moved slower than forecast, the ECMWF has started trend. Still increases the shear to around 30-35 knots overall. I think 25-30. I'm not sure the exact number. It's high. From I think 12 hours in the next 12 hours, but only keeps it at high shear for around a day before the storm starts accelerating towards the northeast and fully taps into the jet interaction. And I believe shear drops to 15 to 20 knots, which is not enough to stop a storm of this size.
I'm just pulling up the HWRF's wind swath now to see what it's got. It's got a peak intensity of
Uh-oh.
around 155 miles per hour.
Okay.
That's a little bit
that would have been
concerning.
worse, actually.
But look at the rain swath.
It's going to be a lot, actually. 16 inches.
But one thing that has remained relatively consistent with the model runs, though, and this is some really good news, is that this storm should actually be picking up speed as it comes into land here.
Is that
So this
good
storm,
news?
yes, it's
Less
not going
time
to
of
linger.
preparation.
I mean, yes, you have less time for preparation, but you also have to consider that this area of the coastline is very low to the relative to the ocean height. So yes, it's going to be a storm surge easily, but as you head farther inland, I believe it goes up in height very dramatically, very quickly.
I suppose.
And that becomes a lot of mountainous areas, and that leads to a lot of rainfall issues. So,
It's a
with
matter
this
of
storm moving fast, it's not going to be a lot of rainfall problems. Of course, we're still going to be seeing a lot of rainfall, but just means that it's not going to be a really bad rainfall event. Still could be bad,
which
but
is the
it's not
lesser
gonna
of
be
two
horrible.
evils, though. If the storm's moving more quickly, it adds on to the winds on the southeastern quadrant, pushing in storm surge.
Yeah, it's just, what's going to happen with this storm. Nobody really knows at this point.
I mean, if there's anything that's there to worry, I was expecting the storm to struggle. I wasn't expecting it to reach Cat 2 today.
Really?
I certainly wasn't.
I think
I was expecting to reach Cat 2 when it began its final acceleration. That's when I was expecting it to reach Cat 2. But now it's high in Cat 2 already, and and I think it's almost a major at this point.
Yeah, certainly. Let's get some
Just
more.
wanting, real quick, just before you go to that question there, Nathan, what would you forecast for the storm's peak right now?
Well, I said earlier on, I think you were away for a minute, that I'm currently going with 140 for a peak.
I think that's a pretty good call. Personally, I probably would bump it up to just 5 miles per hour slightly at the 36-hour forecast point,
Well,
but that's just me.
But how do you figure that when JCWC have gone down?
I can't fathom how they've gone down. Let me have a look at their prognostic reasoning and see what they give. This is my first time reading it.
Me too.
Oh, this is interesting. Am I looking at this right? Is the latest warning cycle number 7? It is. Okay. Well, this is odd. So the forecast cone has 110 knots, but they say here in the reasoning here, Mocha will track more northeastward under the steering for the remainder of the forecast, making landfall just south of the Bangladesh-Myanmar border shortly after 42 hours. But here's where it gets really interesting. The highly favorable conditions will further fuel rapid intensification to a peak of 120 knots by 24 hours. 24 hours? That's too early.
Wow.
And yet they forecasted for 24 hours 110 knots. What? What are they
Their
doing?
prognostic reasoning and their cone isn't lining up properly.
Really, what's
I don't know
going
why.
on?
I don't know why it's inconsistent.
What's going on there? Let's get some questions, though. People have been waiting. Sarkar says, is shear causing the eye to cool down?
I would say it's more of a product of the intense bursts that are circling the eye. When you have such intense bursts circling the eye in a developing cyclone like this, they typically tend to obscure the eye, hence the eye cooling off.
And a question there, an off-topic question. Is there a chance of a development of a tropical depression near South China? We will take off-topic questions if they're about other storms forming, at least briefly.
That's an interesting question, because the Hong Kong Observatory did actually point out that there is a chance that a system that forms in the South China Sea may develop a low-level circulation. They actually haven't mentioned if it becomes a tropical cyclone, though.
And the GFS a little while back had that in the longer range, something that would end up striking the western coast of Luzon. And I can't remember what I've seen, but I'm sure I recall seeing something yesterday or recently on one of the models calling for a weak surface low down there.
And most models actually have it emerging into the South China Sea. Get this, tomorrow night.
Let's have a look
on
at
the
this, then.
UTC clock. Here's the Euro. GFS is about the same position on this. There it is over Hainan Island. And over the course Sunday, you can see it gradually moves off towards the east-southeast. Doesn't develop into anything big. So I probably wouldn't put too much money into this.
It's just a little thingy.
But that's that.
It's
very
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, very curious.
And looking at where it goes after that, it goes off towards the east and dies.
And it's not related to Mocha in any way, is it? It's none of Mocha's energy?
No, it's none of Mocha's energy. I don't think so, it is, at least.
No, because you can see over here's Mocha and here's our system, and they're
Mocha gets
completely.
shaded by the Himalayas. I don't think it's that.
Yeah, interesting.
Remember,
there's-
any storm
yeah.
that comes in the North Indian Ocean will smash headfirst into the Himalayas. It's getting destroyed. It's getting destroyed either way.
Don't go any further on that model run, Ethan.
Nope.
Western
I don't even want
Pacific
to.
business next week
Oh.
on the long range GFS there.
It's a silly range.
It is indeed. Silly range there. Let's take some more questions though. Storm 962 says that shear near Mocha is decreasing because her outflow is consistently deflecting it. Is that the sole reason?
I wouldn't say that because there is a larger player. There's an upper level anticyclone over Southeast Asia that's driving the overall environment for the storm. And as much as it can push off, I wouldn't say push off. As much as it can counter the shear, that shear is still going to increase as it rounds the upper level anticyclone, at least tonight. How well it responds to the increase in shear is key to how strong it becomes after 24 hours. I think we do we have any plans on reconvening again after today's stream?
Reconvening?
Another stream tomorrow. Do we have any plans on that?
We're probably going to be doing 2 streams a day at the moment.
Yes, then yeah, by tomorrow we will be able to know how well Mocha responds to the increase in shear. That's forecasted to happen tonight.
Okay. And another question from SRB12. I remember when the AOI in the Southwest Indian Ocean we called a 60%, then down to 30%, and now back to 40%, and why?
Actually, it's 50.
It is 50 now, yeah. I mean,
There's one reason. There is one specific reason, and that is because of Mocha. Mocha's outflow, equatorial
True.
outflow. If you notice carefully, you can see it in the satellite imagery itself. The expansive equatorial outflow of Mocha
yeah,
pretty much sheared off the invest tag. I think 91s it was back then.
yeah,
Of 91s is lower circulation and mid level circulation. Now that the storm is moving northwards and away from the equator, the environment is turning gradually more favorable for the system which are stuck around. And so chances on models are now rising again.
good explanation there. Usually strengthening storms have lightning, like Ian of last year. Why does Cyclone Mocha not have any lightning during strengthening? Is that actually true, first of all?
First of all, yes, that is true. And the second reason is because Himawari 9 does not support lightning detection.
Damn.
The ghost satellites do. But Himawari does not.
So it might have lightning.
So it's quite likely it probably does. It's just that we don't have any ways of detecting it.
Yes. The Himawari 9 has no instruments on board to detect lightning.
Sad.
Well, usually cyclones, while they're strengthening, they may have some lightning occurring,
You will see it on radar.
but in the rain bands, not really in the center of the system, which is completely, well, not completely, but it's not common to see.
Actually, I'll have to add to that statement. You won't see it in the center, but you will see it in the eye wall. If there is sustained lightning in the eye wall, that's a good indication that the storm is strengthening. That's a useful rule of thumb to remember in the future.
Sarkar wants a little bit more clarity on the shear forecast. Can we tell what knots, what winds, what shear speed will the storm will face later in the forecast?
Let me have a look.
If we want a short bite relative forecast, I would say shear increases to relatively 25-30 knots from 6 p.m. UTC onwards for the next 24 hours before it drops to 15 to 20 knots, and by which time the storm will have started countering it by the jet interaction.
I'm just pulling
high shear for the next 24 hours, then decreases to manageable levels post that.
I've got the current shear graphic thing up on my screen, Nathan. This isn't an accurate representation of what we're actually seeing over the storm, but this indicates that there is some wind shear over the storm right now, although it's probably around maybe 15 to 20 knots or so, at least on this graphic. Storm is probably around this category 3 point here, or around somewhere in between here. So it does have some shear on it, but you can see here in the northern Bay of Bengal, there's high shear up here. So it does appear that it is somewhat favorable over the storm right now, but the shear tendency, as you can see on this RAM graph, really as the storm heads into land, it's going to go up and up and up. But models don't really increase the shear
Ah,
that much until
this is
just as it's
okay.
making landfall.
I can explain Ethan's dilemma here. You see,
Mm-hmm.
the shear chart plots on CIM and CIMSS is of real time. It's it's not a forecast. That's going to change every single
Mm-hmm.
time they make a plot. So that shear is going to
Hey.
move along with the storm. And this is another point I've been meaning to point out. Don't trust the numbers that are shown on this graphic. Trust the if you want to trust something, trust the storm's direction and trust the upper level stream winds that the white lines that you see here. That's more reliable than the numbers that are plotted here. They aren't as useful because they can often be incorrect and don't take into account the movement of the storm. So if the storm is moving in direction with the shear vector, it may, for example, the shear over the storm is 20 knots from the east, but the storm is also moving at 10 knots at the east. So the net shear over the storm is going to be 10 knots, but the CIMSS graph will show 20 knots. So you might come to the wrong conclusion that the storm is experiencing higher net shear than what it's actually experiencing.
Ah,
That's why you have to
interesting.
be careful. That's why you have to be careful when interpreting these graphs. If uh, that's I would always personally recommend using model soundings over graphs like these.
Declan, apologies, but your stream isn't working for some reason at the moment. I'm not sure why. We've also got.
I'm showing a wind shear map.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
It's not working at my end. I don't know why. We've
I'm
also got
afraid it's not.
Nick with us right now. Hello there, Nick. You're showing us more views of the storm as well, including radar and the track forecast from Myanmar there.
Yeah, correct. The Burmese Meteorological Department is what I'm gonna call it right now, because I don't know. There's not a full exact name that I want to call it, but it looks for land. I don't know what minute wind speed they use, but as it appears here, it's 100 to 110 miles per hour on landfall, which would probably be around that same area of the wind estimates that we use. But I also got some warnings, or well, advisories basically, from what I can see, which shows a strong wind warning or possibility around Rakhine State and all the other around surrounding states having a slight wind possibility.
And there's some actual radar. I'm not sure that the Force 13 radar includes this, so it might be one to keep in your bookmarks there.
I think it's been down because I'm pretty sure the time in Myanmar is not 9:20, and this one is from 6 p.m.
3 hours before. Yeah.
Yeah, so the radar's either down because of I don't know electric regulations or something, or it's just frozen.
Interesting. We're near the end of our allotted time, actually. We're just going to get some more questions here. Let's see what we've got right now, and I know I've missed quite a bit so far. What are our thoughts on the Icon going for an Arabian Sea storm as well as 92S?
Christ.
Yeah, about
Would
that.
not put too much into it.
I've seen the Arabian Sea system, and I saw it becoming a slightly more prominent vorticity on ECMWF. It's still
Wow.
at the 10-day range. I wouldn't put too much stock into it just yet. personally. As for 91S, well, sorry, 92S now. It's been renamed as 92S. That could very well become a storm. You just keep watch at it.
Any possible peak rainfalls to major cities or areas in the forecast? Well, we list some of the rainfall expectations for various cities at the bottom of our screen every so often. They go by. I think the highest I saw was about 300 millimeters or so at Cox's Bazar. It's going to be more remote areas that might get a little bit more, but that's the highest that I've seen so far. Let's see what else we've got right now. There's quite a few more questions here. Oh, there was someone who's wondering if that Korean satellite has lightning detection.
I'm not sure, but I believe Ram's Rest Slider has GK2A. That's the name
Yeah.
of the satellite. I'll have to check.
And TJ says that we deserve 1 million subscribers. Well, we do what we can right here. We hope that we're doing a good service and that people find us useful and a good service. And that's what we're aiming for right here. If you do want to support us, though, on our trials and tribulations with all these storms, you can subscribe to our channel. That will also keep you in the loop for more updates. And you can go through our many means of supporting us by becoming a member here on our YouTube channel and many other ways on our social media platforms. Just looking at that latest satellite imagery, though, it is really looking much more pronounced, that eye.
Yeah,
And
it's looking quite good. It's clearing out.
I just never want to make a call on the air, Ethan, really, but I think maybe we'll be calling it a Category 3 soon. But I'm not going to commit on the air. But it looks like it's going to happen sooner or later.
It's
The latest satellite seems to have started wrapping the. It's almost wrapped regarding the convection from earlier. At least on InSat, it's showing as wrapped.
All right. Anything else from our team right now, because we're nearly wrapping up here. When the stream finishes, you'll be redirected to
Alex
our
has just
automated
posted this.
feed.
Sorry, Alex just posted this. We have a buoy that's in the path of the storm.
Well, that's going to be useful.
Yeah, it's currently reporting 93.6 millibars, but
Okay.
its observed pressure is expected to drop further as it gets closer to the storm. So we'll keep a close eye on that.
Absolutely. That's good to see that we have potentially ground observations on the way then.
They were instrumental during Elsa. Hopefully they come of use during the storm as well.
If I'm looking at it right, I'm trying to figure out where exactly that buoy is. It looks like it's not going to be near the center, though.
The closer it gets, the better we can approximate a center pressure from that using
Yeah.
mathematical calculations.
Well, yeah, of course, got the distance marked. Interesting stuff. Well, for those who have just joined us and need a recap, this storm is becoming much more powerful. This is Cyclone Mocha. It's headed towards the coast of Myanmar, and it could strike as a Category 4 storm. It's already quite a powerful storm with winds of 110 miles per hour right now, and we expect that intensification phase will continue, possibly up to landfall, although we think it will weaken a little bit before it gets there. There are over 1 million people displaced around that border region between Bangladesh and Myanmar due to other factors, and so it could be an enormous humanitarian challenge as this gets in there towards, looks like it's going to be landfall on Sunday at some point. We will be here with more live updates later on, probably in the morning local time. We'll have another update as well as videos on our YouTube channel and all kinds of other things. Make sure you follow us on all of our platforms. We're posting all kinds of stuff there, graphics, videos, you name it. Thanks to my team for this hour of coverage. We appreciate their expertise as well. But until next time, which will be fairly soon, I'm sure, we'll see you again soon here from Force 13 HQ. Stay informed and stay safe as this storm meanders closer to land. It is still a little way away, but those miles and kilometers are really closing in. Good night from us, and we'll see you again soon.